starting the recording now. All right. So in terms of what you want to do, you're going to do a comparative analysis in terms of what you're actually comparing the growth of. Remind me again.
It'll be the growth of coliforms present.
The amount of?
Coliform.
Coliform.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. So coliform content. Mm-hmm. So you're going to do a comparative analysis between the two because, yeah, well, you're quite right, persons, we do get recalls of us so often, you know. So,
morning, everybody.
oh, right, morning. Right. So, morning, Adrian, Lillian, yeah. So we do get recalls of us so often, so you want to do this. Was this your initial project that got that you had to upgrade, or this is the final product that you want to go forward with?
I believe this is the final one that I'll go forward with because I would have done my summary chart and I started the Gantt chart already.
Mm.
And I'm currently working on my literature review for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the whole big chunk that would have been finished at 299, I'm almost completed with that at this point.
Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, so one of the things which I would want you all to do, well, just send me a summary of where you're at currently with your project.
Okay, no problem.
And of course, your project outline. What it is, what specifically you're looking to solve. So those are the two things that send it to me. Now, all right, so nice, good, Rihanna. That sounds doable. So how do you purport to do this comparison? Let me hear. You're only saying Rihanna again.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Uh-huh.
So I plan on doing this comparison by using the Cuba. What's this thing called? I can't pronounce the name of the answer.
So you're going to grow the lettuce?
Yeah, well, I have my source already for the homegrown lettuce, and I'll decide on where I can get the romaine lettuce easily from which supermarket. Once I obtain that, I would weigh out a certain amount of the lettuce, both equal parts. I would blend it with buffered peptone water or distilled water, whichever one we have available. And I would transfer them to different I would transfer them to different tubes, mark them, mix them in a vortex mixer. I would transfer the initial blank dilution into another tube, label it, and I would shake it around, have it in, this is me just rambling off the top of my mind because I know
that's fine. That's fine. No shame in it. Go ahead.
That, and I would leave it, let it sit for some time. I would continue doing different mixtures at different strengths. Then I would have I think I'll be using the Agar plates to monitor the growth of the coliforms after I do my mixture. And I would calculate the number of colonies that would have grown over a time period. I believe it's 24 hours I have written down. And when I send you my information, everything would be.
I know it, but you're just giving me an overview. So go ahead. You're going good so far.
Yeah. I think that is a general procedure. It'll be Yeah, I think that's the general procedure of my project.
Yeah, so it sounds good. So one of the things, of course, that sounds as a good outline there, Rihanna. So you're doing a comparative analysis. Comparative analysis, of course, meaning you're looking to see which one is better than the other. And herein lies the difference between good science and actually what happens out there, in terms of general speech, not only speech, but how we analyze and communicate, or the so-called barroom talk. Oftentimes people will just make a comment without substantiating it with any evidence. One of the things which you would have gone through from 199 and 299 is the whole process or the whole concept of the scientific method. Yeah, you all remember that, the scientific method?
Yeah.
Right. So the different steps in the scientific method, of course, everything ideally is hypothesis driven. And in terms of with the hypothesis, when you come up with, okay, so you have something, all right, whatever it is you're trying to prove. In this case, that lattice X or type of lattice X, is different in terms of the growth of a particular microorganism, right, than the other one in terms of, and in fact, that transfers to wellness, by extension as well. So, which is, you could argue the point that, okay, because of the growth of this particular bacteria, if it is you're looking at, then you could say then that because the growth is greater on these, the probability of person getting sick, is increased. And of course, we know that is to be true in the event of what type of bacteria. There's one in particular, but there's always recalls as it relates to lettuce. Which one is that? It begins with S and rhymes with malmonella. I don't know.
I'm taking salmonella.
Yeah. Very good. I was throwing it out to everybody. Yeah, so salmonella bacteria, right? Because one of the issues with lettuce oftentimes is eaten raw, and that is the issue, is not cooked. And we're all aware that, once cooking, when you do cook, cooking not only makes it nice and tasty and soften things up as it particularly relates to meat, but more so it breaks down protein structures as related to microorganisms in particular. So when you're thinking about bacteria, eating it or cooking it for extended periods of time at an elevated temperature above the normal temperature at which they survive. So not only when you look at us, for instance, humans, average body temperature 36 degrees. Ideally, that's that in terms of core temperature, that's the ideal temperature for us. When we get out of that range, things starts to go awry. When we look at the different reactions which occur, chemical reactions down to the level of the cell, once you move out of that temperature range, well, things start to go wrong. And as by extension, when you're looking at bacteria, same things happen. Once you move them out of their comfort zone, that's when things go awry, which is why when you cook food or cook things, you get rid of bacterial content, because bacteria, even though they're unicellular, they do have chemical reactions occurring within the cell itself. Well, they're unicellular in terms of unicellular, within their cytoplasm, cytoplasmic reactions. So once you take it out of that temperature range, things go awry and dot, 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 they then die. So why is one of the important reasons why we do cook things is really to get rid of the bacteria, like salmonella in particular, as it relates to raw elements like lettuce. So you're doing the comparative analysis, hypothesis driven. So you'll come up with, you would have your hypothesis, but more importantly, you're driving it in terms of using data derived from experiment. And that is very important in terms of this level of at 399. You're having experimentally derived data that actually supports or disproves your hypothesis, as the case might be. So it sounds like you're on a good lineage in terms of the methodology. Most critically, once you're doing in terms of the methodology, we always have to be careful in terms of just be of one word. I would say this is one word that carries through for science in general, and that is specificity. You always have to be very specific. When we look at journal articles, for instance, one of the things we will notice, and you look through the materials and methods, what is one thing we notice about materials and methods when we look through it. If you were to read a journal, what is the reason or the rationale behind having a materials and methods section? And they go into great detail. They'll tell you what instruments, depending on the journal, they'll go so far as to tell you the brand name of the instrument that they use, be it a centrifuge or what have you not. They'll go into that level of specificity. They might even tell you the ambient temperature of the lab itself, right? They'll tell you things related to the incubator temperatures. They'll tell you, all humid, well, of course, incubators have standard environmental parameters in which exist, but they go into great detail. And the reason why they go into great details within the methodology of any, when you read journal articles, is for what reason? There's one reason why they go into very much all that detail when they're talking about methodology. And this is for the class in general. Why do they go into that detail? So they do that so that the experiment would be one word, begin with R.
Creative, so other people could run the same experiment, to recreate the experiment and get the same result.
I wasn't thinking that the word recreated, Lillian, but you hit the nail on the head. I was thinking about reproducibility, but but it's the same thing. As they say, tomato, tomato. Very good, right? So that you could recreate it. And that is very critical, which is why, when you are doing your experiment, it's very, very important detail. Right, so just think about it. You're living on the corner house. Here's the street marco. You're noticing everybody's business. So you have to be very detailed. You have to notice things and you have to write them down such that somebody else coming after you would be able to, by going through your methodology, be able to get the same results which you'll get as well. All right, so far sounds good in terms of getting the lettuce. You say that you're in the business of sourcing it and so on. So you wouldn't be growing it, no?
No, actually.
Yeah, that might be a bit much to ask to grow it. Quite so, right?
It would be one of my family members. He is in the business of growing local lettuce. So
What you're saying? Oh, okay, excellent. Either that, or if things that work out, what you'll do, hit the grocery shelf in a worst case scenario, all right, or in the market, right? So you get it, you puree it, right? And of course, once again, reproducibility. So what are some of the parameters you think you'll be looking at in terms of when you get that puree? What parameters you think you'll be looking at? Such that somebody else coming after could do the same thing.
Well, I look at its consistency. I'll make sure that after it's pureed, I'll make sure that both of them pureed the same way with the same amount of distilled water or the
And more right. And relating to the samples themselves, what has to be the same with your two samples? Sample A, the store-bought, well, I mean the foreign and the local.
I would try to get them like the leaves. I would try to use like the same from the same position and like the exterior leaves versus the core.
Right. And how would you measure that? How would you measure then, let's say the leaves, the two different type of leaves? Will you be using, what units you'll be using? I know you know, but you're just not saying it. So I'm trying to pull it out of you. So what measure you'll be using for the leaves? Would you be using length? Will you be using density? Will you be using?
I think you'll be using length.
The length of the leaf?
Yeah.
All right, so that's one way, yeah, one way, right. Any other way you think of? So like when you go to the market, what do they usually use when you're buying things?
I'm thinking weight.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a way, in terms of mass, right? So you could use it as, X, so you get X in terms of the mass, because measuring the size, I hear what you're saying, and that could possibly work, but I could see, in terms of persons wanting to query that one. One of the things, you always try to be ideal, and whereas measuring is not too bad. You could say you measured, let's say, the fifth leaf from the core for both of them. Yeah, I guess that could work, and I'm not mad at you. But using the weight as well, the weight of the leaf, or scientifically, as I said, the mass of the leaf,
Yeah.
So having a given mass, for a given mass, then you puree it, and then of course, quite rightly, as I say, you use the agar plates, and you just plate it out in the incubator. So the key then for you because it seems then that you have the leaves under control is really getting that environment of the incubator and so on in control, under control. So where that is concerned, I guess you'll be liaising with me. I'll be liaising with the lab to ensure that they do have that area for you. And the incubation time, you have any idea how long the incubation time will be you'd want for that bacterial growth? You have any idea? I just throwing it out. You could say no, eh? I'm not mad if you. That's one thing. Well, when you're communicating with me, please be very honest and straightforward. I wouldn't be mad. You're not expected to know everything. Always remember that. So if you don't know, you just say, well, I just don't know. How long. If you had a ballpark, what units we're looking at in terms of that incubation time, on the order of hours, days, weeks, months? What do you think?
I believe it would have been 24 hours, but
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure what I have written down. Like I
Yeah.
mentioned, I don't have it
Yeah.
written down.
No, you're right. You're correct. So because these things don't take very long to multiply, which is why you get sick so quickly. You ever realize when you eat something bad, quote unquote, yeah, it doesn't take very long for you to get sick. You ever right? Like, if it is, let's say, anybody, you leave food on the counter in the morning, you go to work and then you come back and then late in the evening and you're watching it, and you smell it. As I often tell my students, whenever you see you smell food twice, it's always better to throw it out. Yeah. It usually means something is wrong. But the reason why it smells, quote unquote, sour so quickly, when you think about it, over the period of hours, you have the bacteria, they're breaking down the food and they produce waste products, which to us smell bad. So that just gives you an idea in terms of their reproductive phase. They reproduce exceptionally quickly. So similarly, now you're giving them an ideal environment as it relates to the agar plate. They will reproduce very, very quickly. So in terms of your experimental time, that's why I say the critical aspect or the limiting factor will be that getting it in that incubator, but it's not very long at all in terms of their growth. We're looking at the order of hours, or in a worst case scenario, we're just looking at 1 or 2 days in terms of that growth pattern, right? But you will see it, after checking on it, because again, to its density, we're looking at in terms of the plate density and how dense it is even within the lettuce itself. But it should get good growth, on the order of days. So that limit, once you get that done, that's a critical aspect you solve there. Once you get good colony growth. All right. So it sounds good. Good. Lillian. Rihanna. It sounds Rihanna. Yeah, it sounds good in terms of that romaine lettuce. So I look forward to just seeing you sending me just the particulars on it. All right. I think we could sign off and get you going. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
All right, great. All right. So who's next to give me an outline of their project? Now, if you didn't come with the outline, just say I didn't come with the outline. Not an issue. All right, just remember, just for this project, just be straightforward with me. That's the main thing. All right, so Avrian, you want to talk a little bit about your project?
So I didn't come at our outline, but basically my project is looking at pregnant women and how certain fruits impact them developing gestational diabetes. So we're looking at fruits like pineapples, banana, grapes, fruits that have high sugar content, and I'm looking at those pregnant women from some trimesters from 2. Basically, they are more prone to develop gestational diabetes at trimester 3, but I'm looking at 2 to 3. Go on, and I'll be getting this information, like doing surveys, looking at pregnant women and the hospital and the clinics, letting them do surveys, seeing what the diets are like, what fruits that they intake most regularly, and so forth. So I'll be testing the fruit, some of the fruits that I have selected, which are grapes, mangoes, pineapple. Sorry, not pineapple, because pineapple have an effect on pregnant women. Sorry about that. Bananas, and I'll be looking at their sugar content and testing the sugar content in the lab. And I will be collecting these data based on the results that I have collected from the pregnant women that did the survey. So I'll be giving out also pamphlets, giving a little brief definition about what is gestational diabetes, the effects, the risks, and so forth. And well, yeah, I'll be collecting the data and then testing the fruits at the lab to see which fruits are high in sugar content. I'll be doing the Benedict's test. I'll be using the refractometer, which tests the sugar content in the fruits. And I'll be looking at the results on the selected patients, well, pregnant women that have answered my survey and give me so forth information to see which fruits they have intaked most, their effects, and if they had developed gestational diabetes prior pregnancies before. So the women that have developed gestational diabetes prior to the current pregnancy that they are in will be at higher risk. So I'll be looking at that also, and be looking at the fruits that they intake and testing the fruits at the lab. So that's how I'll come up with my results and see which fruits have a huge impact on women eventually developing and at risk of developing gestational diabetes. So finish.
All right. Okay. Okay. I hear what you're saying. Well, as you go along, you'd have to tighten that up because it's a very, I hear what you're saying. Was this approved from 299?
Yes. The first one, research project 1 and research project 2.
Right. Anybody talk to you about, tightening it up? Because you mentioned, all right, so we'll be looking at development of gestational diabetes. But what I'm thinking is this: how could you know specifically is related to those fruits? Well, I guess you'll have to see the survey. You'll be asking then certain, I'm guessing, the frequency of eating these fruits,
Yes, so previously there were studies, based on research. There were these particular fruits that I have selected were high in sugar content, and some of the fruits that I also selected to test were linked to gestational diabetes. So it wasn't really something that I just came up with. It had previous studies saying that certain fruits are linked to
yeah.
So I didn't explain myself properly, and
No, I understand what you're saying. But what I'm trying to say is cause and effect. So how it is, okay, so let's say, like I said, I probably have to see the questionnaire. How how it is you're going to draw that connection in terms of with the questionnaire, and you're giving it to these women, to draw that conclusion then that, okay, they're having bananas in their diet led to gestational, if you understand what I mean, that led to gestational diabetes. That's a bit of a stretch, so that's why I say it needs to be tightened up. And the other thing as well, in terms of the fruits, okay, maybe I'll comment more. Let me see the questionnaire first. And,
because I'm probably not explaining it properly.
No, I understand what you're saying, but it's just I need to see, just my mind running in terms of how you need to get people then who eat grapes, eat bananas, eat pineapple, and so the question is then, how many pregnant women out there actually eat grapes, eat pineapple, eat bananas on a regular basis? So I'm looking at then your catchment area if all these people be taking no, you know, on your questionnaire. So that's why I say in terms of maybe it might be best even just to look at one or two things, you know, just two, as opposed to a whole lot. You know, so so that's where my concern is. Just get
Yeah,
the
for sure.
catchment pool in terms of persons who eat these fruits that you'll be testing, and I wonder if you actually have to test it or if the data already exists for those things, you know, the fruits and so on.
Yeah.
But it is an interest. It does have scope. I could see that it does have scope.
So fruits like grapes and oranges and so this is like common fruits that women will regularly intake. So I just want to test to see how much sometimes they may overconsume it. And you know, these fruits have a high
Okay.
GI index. Yeah. So
Okay. And where the catchment area, where you plan to get your data from? You mentioned questionnaires.
yeah.
Where you plan to give out the questionnaires?
So I plan to give out some pamphlets at the clinics. The hospitals have the
Oh no, actually I don't know.
sorry. All right. The hospitals have
Yes.
clinic dates
Okay.
for pregnant women. So I'm planning to give out some pamphlets with information based on what is gestational diabetes, the risk of gestational diabetes, the risk of your baby being affected when he develops gestational. Just an informative small
Okay.
pamphlet, and it will
Okay.
have like a link. So you know everybody will have the phone on you. Everybody's had the phone on them. So they just click on the link, edit the link on Google on the phone, and they go straight to the Survey Monkey, and you do the questionnaire, and I get the feedback there, so I'll be able to see, you
All
know,
right.
what.
Do you need any approvals for that?
From who, sir?
No. So the question is, okay, let me put it in perspective. Could I walk in a clinic and just start to ask people those questions,
Oh,
or is
no,
there?
well, I will have to, I will have to ask permission from the clinic or the Ministry
Right.
of Health. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is something that you know you need to work on. Maybe
Okay.
even maybe even before, because it would be ironic if it's, you know, you work on everything and then you get a no. You know, you can't do that. No, we don't allow that at all. Taking up a data. No. You know, then everything would be for naught. So
So
maybe,
now I should go and see, no,
yeah.
like put in the word to get
Yeah, so
approval.
maybe that is should be among your first things to do. Yeah, to find out if you could collect data in a clinical setting from a hospital, first of all, you know, before progressing. But it does have scope. I could see that, and you know, we'll speak further to it as we go along. But it does have scope. I can understand wanting to draw a correlation between sugar intake, and not only sugar intake, but sugar intake from particular foods. Just this
Yeah.
morning, I was listening to a discussion, you know, it's very interesting in term on BBC. They were looking at a correlation actually between diet and mental health. You know, which is, and that has to do with the microbiome, you know, the bacteria in your gut, what you feed them. So more and more what they're finding out is this microbiome or the bacteria in your gut. It is like your second brain. It controls virtually everything in your body. There has been correlation drawn between those bacteria in your gut and, of course, control of your immunity. I mean, that is a known correlation. Number of papers have been written on it, but now they're looking at it, you know, in terms of your psychological well-being, right? And again, too, could be turning on and off of certain genes that lead to the production of certain hormones that affect, let's say, you know, behavior. That's the next step. But your gut is definitely, that is the newest frontier, and a lot of research has been done on it. So most definitely you're heading down a very good route in terms of being on the cutting edge of medical endeavor, as it were, right? So it's a very good topic, and we can massage and work with it. So good job.
Thank you, sir. So,
All right.
one
Yeah.
thing I have to ask, right? Do I need to get like a letter from the school? I'm now thinking about it in depth. Do I need to get a letter from the school stating that I'm doing a research project and I'll need to do research and get data from the patients?
Right. So you find out all of that from on the other side. So when you know when you approach the hospital and tell them you're interested in doing that, first and what you would need. They will tell you what you need, these particulars. They say, well, you know, you need a letter from the school, blah, 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 blah. And if that is the case, you come let me know and we'll work that out. Okay?
All right, sir. Thank you.
All right, very good. Then I was Avrian. All right, so who's next? You're just giving me an overview. I see somebody put something in the chat. Let me have a quick look. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, somebody write a big set of thing there, but I don't think you're, oh, this is Salima. All right, so having a look at Salima's, I don't think you're hearing me. Right, my project is basically looking at the effects of simulated acid rain on tomato plants. Tomato is a major dietary source of many things. With what's going on in our atmosphere, acid rain is a concern for agriculture. That and we don't export many of our goods, so our export costs are high. I believe it's 14%. So I literally paid $70 for 2 packs of tomato last week. So I need to source the chemicals to make the acid rain, looking at leaf health, height, quality of fruits, size, weight, color, and visual health. Okay, Salima, I'm hearing you. So you're looking at acid rain or variability of moisture content parameters on the growth of, not only growth, looking at leaf health on certain measurable parameters on the tomato plant, acid rain on tomato. All right, this sounds viable as well. I would just say, again, for specificity and looking at the time frame, is best to narrow it down to, let's say, one or two parameters. You know, say mention size, weight, color, visual health. Maybe you could just look at maybe the weight of the fruit and the color. Color is a good determinant of, but to look at leaf and so on, while it is good, I applaud you for that. But again, you always have to remember the time frame you're working at. And we're looking at, 15 weeks in terms of from now to presentation. All right. So maybe just limiting that. But that is something to look at in terms of chemical rain. So you could vary the pH quite rightly, use different. So I'm guessing, okay, so you're online. So I'm guessing if you're growing it, you're doing this one yourself, you're actually growing the tomato plants. I'm guessing in this case, well, it sounds that way because you have to do the rain and so on. Salima, yeah, you could type it in the chat. So if you're doing it and then looking, great. In terms of varying the parameters, maybe you could just, for specificity, look at pH. This is what acid rain boils down to. So you could look at degree of acidity or alkalinity. In terms of varying the parameters of that acidity and alkalinity, or ideally, you'd need something like a litmus, well, that's litmus paper or a pH meter. Well, a pH meter kind of tricky. So the litmus paper would probably be best. And you could look at something, well, vary the acidity using vinegar and bicarbonate of soda, right? And distilled water. And yeah, so you could vary it. The pH, just use about 2 or 3 markers either side of 7 in terms of the scale for acidity and alkalinity, or more so when you look at the components of acid rain, see where the pH is closer to, and then see if you can mimic it using, as I said, to vary it. To vary the pH, you could use vinegar and bicarbonate of soda, just to vary the pH to get it close to the acid rain levels, or notwithstanding just acid rain, because I'm sure there's not just a fixed pH for acid rain, but it's really a range. So, you could look in terms of, with your study, you could just look at a couple, not too many. Once again, sometimes we get carried away in terms of things, and we set up an experiment that will take actually months and months. So probably look at 2 or 3 pH ranges. Of course, you have your control to do the comparison too, and then just set it up, and you'll have to isolate these plants from other. How you plan to isolate the plants from other moisture? I don't know if you thought on that yet, Salima. because you'll be giving it the acid rain. Yes, that's the plan. I had three different pH. Yeah, how you'd isolate it, you know, in terms of the moisture content, because how do we, you know, because we want to be very specific. If you, so in fact, one of the things you could do, and I mean, granted, you always have to think in terms of the parameters that you have, because there's always humidity in the air, right? And that contributes, of course, to the growth of the plant. So what you could do is just when you're writing up your, even your results, you just mention that all of the plants were exposed to the same humidity. So in that way, you know, you grow them, let's say in some area, in a particular area, but you know, so you're just stating that. So that was not one of the specific parameters. It wasn't just growing it then in the environment of acidity, of acid rain. But then again, when you think about it, even when it's outside, that really isn't a determining parameter, because when plants are outside, they are exposed to the normal normal environmental conditions. And it's only when the rain falls, that's when they get the acidity introduced to them. So that, okay, so that is not too much of an issue. You could grow it, you know, in a normal environment, but vary it like ever so often, you know, in terms of wetting both sets of plants, or 2 or 3 sets with the different solutions, different pH solutions. And of course, your control one would be the one that, you know, you have quote unquote, just normal water, or maybe even have it externally, grow it outside. Nah, that one wouldn't be good, because when you grow it outside, you don't know, you're not controlling for the exposure of the water content that is actually getting to this plant. It won't be very specific. So you'll have to grow that one as well. You know, have all of them covered or something like that. And at specific times of the day, water them with the different solutions. That'll probably be best in terms of, so the control will be the one that you're using normal quote unquote. Maybe you could just take pipe water initially, check the pH. Would we be able to check for mineral content? No. So what you could say is that the stock solutions were made from pipe-borne water, and you know, you just say that you know, the mineral content is not being looked at, it's just the pH. So you have a stock solution, and then from that you make the different pH solutions involving, you know, dilutions. We use vinegar, bicarbonate, of soda to dilute it out. And then you have this, well, you have that, and you'll be using that stock solution, well, the stock solutions, you'll be using that repeatedly over the duration of your experiment, and then you'd look for growth. How long does it take for, very good question, how long does it take for tomatoes to bear? Because if it is, let's say we're going to look at the plant, maybe fruit. And you have any idea how long it takes for fruition? Anybody can answer that question. Yes, no? Anybody have any idea how long it takes for tomato to bear? So maybe, or are you just going to look at the parameters of the growth of the plant, Selima? That might be best, as opposed to fruit. All right, maybe Selima got a little disruption in the internet connection. All right, so say it takes more than 60 days. Ooh, yeah, that is way past. So in terms of the parameters, then it's probably best to look at the growth parameters of the plant itself, in terms of the height, in terms of number of leaves, and ultimately, you know, you could sacrifice the plant and then look at the mass of the plant itself. Or if you have a sensitive scale, no, we wouldn't be able to control for the water content in the soil. So maybe at the end of it all, yeah, you could, well, it wouldn't be killing the plant. You could take out the plant, you know, wash out the sand and weigh the plants, and then you could replant them, because it's not good just to kill the plant. Yeah, so you could have a very good indication of the weight of the plant as well. So different parameters to look at would be like plant height, number of leaves, weight of plant, and maybe you could look in the literature. So very importantly for all of these experiments is your literature search. As I say, don't reinvent the wheel. So go on PubMed in terms of a repository for research and type in your research, what you want to look at, and see what data comes up from previous experiments, all right? But this sounds doable. But most definitely, it's just 60 days for the plant, for the tomato fruit. We wouldn't want to look at the fruit as a parameter. So instead, you'll be using measurable quantities like the height and the mass of the plant, right, as measures of growth. And then you could then state at the end of the period that, okay, A, B, C, at different pHs, we saw ideally then the growth, the greatest growth occurred at such and such pH. So then you could prove or disprove your hypothesis in terms of the contribution of acid rain. That is okay, Salima? Okay, great. All right, so thanks, man. So let me see. So we heard from Salima. Who we didn't hear from? We heard from, let me check. We heard from Salima. We heard from Avrian, and we heard from Rihanna. So
So you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. Hello. Go ahead, Lillian. Go ahead.
Hear me?
Yes. I don't know if you're hearing me.
I didn't go yet, me.
Okay, Lillian, go ahead.
Lillian.
Go ahead. If you could just give a little overview.
My project is fantastic bleach.
Oh,
As
for a
fantastic
while there, when you say fantastic, I was like, okay, confident young lady. Then you said bleach, and I say, okay. All right, so Lillian, go ahead.
Cotton and I'm right now.
I understand. Try your best.
Right, so I'm doing fantastic bleach and where to buy them. The Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards has a standard for bleach. So they recommend that you don't just buy bleach at the side of the highway, that you use brands that they have listed with the 5% hypochlorite concentration, because this concentration is ideal for killing bacteria if you use the bleach dilutions properly, right? So I basically want to test the standard to see if standard bleach really is better at killing bacteria at different concentration than unstandardized bleach. So I'm using testing different concentration on bacterial growths for 2 certified bleach brands and for 2 uncertified bleach brands.
What bacteria are we looking at?
So,
which bacteria? Because there are a whole lot of different bacteria. So
Staphylococcus and E. coli.
All right, so you're looking at staph growth, and E. coli growth. So the efficacy, so you're looking at the efficacy of the bleach in terms of inhibiting the growth of these colonies. So, yeah, so I guess then you'll be growing them up on plates.
Yes,
in terms of measuring. So you'll be doing so similar to the first one, to our first experiment. Who was that? Who did it?
Rihanna.
What Rihanna did. So you'll be doing a comparative analysis then in terms of growing it up on after you apply the bleach. Yeah, that's very interesting in terms of bleach application, different bleach. How many bleach you work? Well, I mean, I'll be seeing your proposal, which you'll be sending to me. But offhand, how many bleach types you're looking at?
Well, 2 certified and 2 uncertified, because the specification is 5% hypochlorite up to the date of expiration. Some bleach brands will try to go over the 5%. So I also have to test the concentration.
And how you be testing the concentration? Curious.
Titration.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. We have that equipment in the lab. I mean, you will know better than I. Yeah, we have that equipment.
I had asked Miss Mohansing and she said it was doable, but that was when I did 299. I'm not sure if it's last year. I was pregnant last year, probably. So I don't know.
So
I'm hoping that's because all the branches move together now. We should have a lot of equipment.
Since we go online, everything should be stuck up.
I hoping. I know I had to get the bleach brand. Something else I was supposed to buy. The equipment I wanted to use that I wouldn't have to do titration, they didn't have that. So the titration is the
Yeah, that's the only way to,
the one that I
check the
said.
concentration.
Yeah.
Yeah, with bleach because it's colorless as well. So you have to, that's the only way to really check it is to do a titration. When you see the color change, you know, it has reached the pH, the particular pH. All right, but I think they should have that, yeah. Either between, I know you're right, as far as I could recall, because it has been 2+ years, there's a pH meter. There was a pH meter down south at least. So I think there's a pH meter around. Those pH meters, there's something else that, so between the pH meter and the titration, you should be able then to be,
Or if
no,
I could go
not
Bureau
the pH
standards
meter,
and get
sorry.
something, they have something that's check the like literally check the percentage of hypochlorite. So
I was not going to say that.
it.
I was not going to say with the pH. I was talking about pH meter. But chlorine pH, that wouldn't, yeah.
And have a machine that does check it and it just had to run the calculation, but
Well, talk to the Bureau of
on them Bureau
Standards.
of Standards will have
You know,
kits willing to donate.
you could draft a letter to them because you're right, they do have it, the Bureau of Standards, to check, as well as Kariri. You could check with Kariri as well. I know just English is your first language, and you seem quite expressive. So you know, see if we can hit them a letter stating that you know you're a student, blah blah blah, and if it is, then that they'll be willing to test samples for you. You know, just mention that there are 6 samples, if they could be willing, and how this will be contributing towards your, you know, your grade in class. So that's a mention as a backup, because you could well be able to do it, you know, within COSTAT itself. But yeah, it sounds interesting. Yeah, it sounds doable. Just looking at bleach, PBB. So at the end of the day, what will your statement have in it then?
What I want to say, boy, that
Do you think that there
To
are
check to see if
some
this
bleaches?
standard,
Go ahead.
if the standard is actually ideal.
Do you think, if I were to just ask offhand, do you think that some bleaches are, not all bleaches are created equal when you go in the
Not all,
grocery?
because it have something called not sodium hypochlorite, something else hypochlorite. What is it? Another
Active
compound similar
ingredient.
to it, but it does not kill all bacteria in low concentration. So lots of the bleaches that are not certified using something instead of hypochlorite or a lower percentage of hypochlorite.
So if you were to offhand, based on, I'm guessing, your literature search, because you do speak with a bit of authority as it relates there, if you were to give a message to the general population, what would you say as it relates to bleach? If you see it on sale, buy the cheapest bleach. What should
I
you
would say don't buy bleach on the side of the highway, because a lot of these brands like Soapy and from other countries, they're not following the standards. They either don't have any bacteria killing product, and the labeling, you cannot tell what the active ingredient is. So you can go to the Bureau of Standards website and they actually have the list of the 10 bleach brands in Trinidad that are certified.
All right.
And also bleach have expiry dates, and heat and light affects bleach brands. So when you buy the brand that's sorted outside on the highway that the man have there a while, you're not sure how long he have it.
It could be a hit and miss. It could be then that you do get one that actually works very well. But then again, it could be one that you're buying water. You're buying water with some fragrance in it. It's really a hit. So
even if you're trying to clean your water home and you're following, 1 tablespoon to so much water, because you're not sure of what the concentration is, you mightn't be doing anything to clean that water.
All right. Yeah. All right. So it sounds doable. All right. So one of the things, all right, so I heard from Lillian, Avery, Rihanna, and Salima. All right. In terms of your projects, and they all sound doable. So the next thing, and I'll be putting it up. So every week, so there's the thing with this course, and I'll just run through the course outline. Everybody read it? You could say no. Everybody went through this?
I didn't read it.
Yeah, it's a bit wordy, I wouldn't lie. And I have myself, I don't like to read, so I can understand if you didn't go through it. I'm not mad with you, right? We'll just briefly go through it because I did say 1 hour and we're looking at 3 minutes to the end of class. All right, I half did, Salima. I hear you, Salima. Yeah, it's a bit verbose, right? And I know you like to be laconic, to the point. TikTok, is play with your thing. Even for me, I like to see things a little bit and just finish. All right. So yeah, so when I do see your proposals, I would say your name. It sounds good. They all sound good. They all sound doable when I concerned. So one of the things going forward, number one, I would say after today, that's it. I know some people have challenges meeting at this time. Yeah. But guess what? We don't meet again on Thursday, right? I'm letting you go for 10 weeks, right? Where you're supposed to be doing independent work. However, on a weekly basis, you would catch up with me. You have to catch up with me and give me an update of where you're at. In terms of the catch up, it could be as simple as everybody good with WhatsApp,
Yes.
right? So hit me up on, send it, if you feel comfortable, you could put it on the whole chat, but if not, just specifically send it to me and you actually get graded for it. So, just give me an update where you stand as it relates to it. And so for the next 10 weeks, we don't meet again on a Thursday on a fixed class time. But what you will be doing is you'll be tightening up your work as it relates to this as you go along. All right. So let me just go through this. It's a 1 year, it's a 1 credit course. Very importantly, people, I will just say this much. As you're doing this, just be as straightforward as you could with me. All right. I am not a zigzag person. What you see is what you get. And I really want you all to do well in this course. And if it is I am seeing that you're having particular difficulty, I would put a little more effort with you. But I could only do that if I know what's going on. So please come straight with me. Don't come zigzag. And then coming down to the end, you're giving me a totally different story. All right. So just come straight. I will not be mad at you because I know you're doing other things, we're working and so on. We have a whole lot of things going on. So I would work with you. So all I'm asking is you come straight. Just come straight with me and I will do my best to get you out. And not only that, I want everybody to do very well. Really, I'm not one of those who take delight, in saying how many people have failed or anything like that. By no means, I really want you all to do well and have a great experience. Everybody cool with that?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. All right, so let's see what we have to do here. I have about 2 minutes again. I did say 1 hour, right? So it's a course. It's a one hour course. It's one credit. Right, students, you'll finish this. You should have these knowledge based, right? And these are the specific courses which you all already did. Teaching methods. Total number of assessments is 7. So for next week's class, I will put up there, show you how you actually getting grades. Right? How many people did the COVID thing last week?
I did it, sir.
Huh?
I
Well,
did it, sir.
you get plus, believe you me, that's +5 already you earned there. I throw that up really. I mean, go through that again. In terms of the COVID, that is something very relevant. I wanted to see how many persons would have actually responded to it. All right. So let's see. So the overview, weekly check-ins, that's the main thing. So do keep in contact with me. I will be keeping in contact with you. And if for some odd reason I see you off, I'm not hearing from you, I would contact you. So as I said, after today, we will not be you'll have independent work to be done, where you'll be checking in with me over the next 10 weeks. Notwithstanding that, on the e-classroom page, it will be constantly updated every week in terms of certain milestones that you're supposed to be achieving for that week. All right. So when you're in doubt, 2 things. If ever you're in doubt of where you're standing or anything, 1, look on the e-classroom page. And secondly, 2, hit me up on WhatsApp. All right. As I said, I don't bite people, Hello, Olivia. How are you going? Nice to see you. And I'm not saying that sarcastically. Yeah? I really mean that. I know you're about business, but you still come true. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, let's go. So there are 3 sessions. We'd get that later on, but as I said, today, after today, you're going independent and you'll be touching home base. So that's to reiterate. For the next 10 weeks, you'll be doing your work. For next week, as you'll be seeing as we go along, I will update the course page. Right, so always look at the course page for next week. What we want to do is to get the outline of your work and send it in to me. In terms of the outline, at most 2 pages. If you get down to 1, that's fine, where you'll outline what you're doing. Basically, for all of the persons who presented today, what you spoke about today, that's basically it. Just get it down. If you could get it on 1 page, that's fine. If you get it on 2, that is great. All right, 1 or at most 2 pages. I don't want nothing more than that. All right, and do remember when you're writing, just for specificity, right? So though in terms of using the language, have to remember when you're doing science, it's like another language in and of itself. Science is a very specific language. So instead of saying things, well, I'll be using some plants, no, I'll be using 3 varieties, variety A, B, C. So just try when you're doing your outline, just to be as specific as possible. I'll be doing it for a period of time, no, I'll be doing it for 8 weeks, right? So being very, very specific, okay? Flipgrid. Everybody familiar with Flipgrid? I'll start up statistical edit. Everybody familiar with Flipgrid? If not, say no.
Yes, sir. I'm familiar with it.
Everybody familiar? Rihanna, you familiar? You're okay. Avrian,
Yes,
you
sir.
familiar with Flipgrid?
Yes, sir.
Salima, you familiar with Flipgrid? Everybody familiar with Flipgrid? All right, we'll have to throw out. Okay, she put it up in the chat. Let's see. You all used it before.
Yes, sir. I used it before.
You all used it before. Okay, great. So, all right, so we're using Flipgrid then. All right. And these are some of the things. So these are what some of the things covered, right? This is what you did in 199 and 299. This is what we're looking at here. Independent conduct of scientific experiment, project management skills, data gathering, performing, and the end product. So at the end, you'll be doing a seminar style oral, and believe you me, I would get you prepared for your presentation. Seminars are actually one of my fortes. So at the end of the day, because this one would be in front of your of teachers and so on, I would get you prepared. So don't, when that time comes, you'll be fine. All right, so I hope nobody having any heart palpitations about that, but you will be very well prepared when that time comes. I give you my assurances. These are some of the outcomes of it. All right, in terms of knowledge, skills, statistical analyses, professionalisms, these are some of the things which are required. Right, cognitive, psychomotor, affective domains. Right, these are the things, and these how they link. So this is how the grading goes. Right, so here in terms of the virtual cocktail party, which is today 5%. Once you come, you get your 5%. Right, and I would say one. Just another thing as well, if ever we make an arrangement, if it is that you want a little more in-depth, we could make arrangements, have a Zoom session. Always remember that. So hit me up on WhatsApp with that. Say, I want to chit chat, and we can have a Zoom session one-on-one or with the extended group. That is not a problem. But one of the things, as I said, be straight. If it is you can't make it, even if it's 5 minutes before the Zoom session, just let me know. Hey, something come up, I can't come. All right. So do like as I said, just be straight with me. That is the main thing I really would appreciate. I would be more than less a little bit perturbed, if you say it and I just appear and nobody comes or no communication when that is concerned. All right. So just be straight. That's all I ask from you. So today, 5% for everybody who attended. For those who didn't come, those who gave excuses, they'll get 5. For those who didn't come and didn't give a shout out, they'd have the opportunity to make that up. All right, so methodology and timeline workshop, 10%, consultation and mentorship sessions, which is formative. So 5 meetings. So that is on WhatsApp. I don't see why Those are given then. You'll get your 10% here. Presentation dry run when the time comes close, as another 5%. Contribution to seminar booklet, well, you'll have to give me the abstract, 5%. So notwithstanding that the final seminar presentation is worth 60%, there's no reason why you can't go in there with a significantly close to 40%. Right? I don't see why. You'll be very close to 40, between 30 and 40, definitely. And then comes the final seminar, 60. And based on the feedback, you get your last 5. All right. So everybody here looking for A's, not so? Let me hear you.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Always aim for the sky so that when you fall, if you happen to fall, you fall on the clouds. But I don't see why not. Once you're willing to just follow the instructions, communicate with me, I see no reasons why you shouldn't get your A. Okay. So as I said, so today was our first meeting, first and only meeting for now. Going forward from next week, we'll be having, you'll be communicating with me on WhatsApp, right? So you just hit me up. As I said, you could put it in the general chat, or you could send it specifically to me in terms of the updates. When you're looking on the course page in terms of the e-classroom, I'll just give you markers as where you should be as it relates on a week-to-week basis. So once again, when you're in doubt, just go to the course page first, and then of course, if you still want clarity, then you just hit me on WhatsApp. Everybody good?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Right, so Flipgrid, right, this gives a timeline, 15 weeks in terms of the final presentation. I'll do a calendar, a schedule for you to let you know what date you present on, all right, in terms of the 15 weeks, which is 3 months hence. So today is the 22nd of September, October, November, December, right before Christmas. You'll want to present before Christmas or after Christmas?
After.
Oh, please. Oh my God.
We'll
My
do-
birthday is right after Christmas.
Well, when you say after Christmas, we're talking about January, not immediately after Christmas in that regard. I'll do a survey. I'll do a survey, and then we'll decide. All right, which one is best where that is concerned. All right. Oh, any other questions? Anybody have any questions? We'll be using the chat. That's the best way, the quickest way to get to me, because I check that several times a day. So if you do want to communicate with me, hit me up on chat. So always remember, hit me on chat. You'd get a response before the day is out, right? Before 24 hours go before, not even 24, before the end, by end of day. If you put someone on the WhatsApp chat or send something to me on WhatsApp, you'll get it before the end of the day, you'll get a response, okay? Olivia, you could give your presentation in a nutshell, what you plan to do?
So I was thinking of doing something with planarians.
Who that?
Planarian worms, basically flatworms.
Planarians?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
flatworms.
Mm-hmm.
But I really don't know. Do we have to I don't know how feasible it would be for me to get those.
Yeah, I
those,
was now thinking, yeah, in terms of, first of all,
Yeah.
getting them, and then getting a suitable number for your experiments, maintenance of flatworms, unless, so what was your overaching? Okay, so let's say you get the worms, what you'll be looking at then? What you wanted to look at?
I was really looking at memory, the transfer of memory in worms. So the premise, so we know that planarians are light sensitive. Well, not just that, but they are light sensitive. There was an experiment that I read that when they introduce a certain stimuli to the planarians, they would react a certain way. They would do that for a couple of weeks, and then they would cut the heads off. Of course, a new head would grow. And they noticed that it's almost like the planarians were still trained to react that way to that stimuli. And it's something that I find was interesting. Is memory really stored in the brain, or is it really stored in our individual cells?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Indeed. Well, we have to think about in terms of, well, humans are cephalized in terms of having a central nervous system
Yeah.
And as opposed to, let's say, worms in terms of having a diffuse nervous system,
Right.
right?
Right.
So then the repository of information then wouldn't necessarily lie in a quote unquote head, but it's
Right.
distributed over the entire body because our worms are made up. Yeah, I'm not sure. To the best of my recollection, worms don't have like a central brain. They're not
No.
cephalized like us
No.
humans. So therefore, their memory capability, is spread out throughout the entire body. Quite right.
Yeah.
Similar to how cockroaches, in terms of having spiracles and having the ability to breathe across the whole body.
Mhm.
Why you chop off the head, it could still move because they
Mhm.
breathing unlike us, where we have, this
Yeah.
whole concept of taking in through the nasal passage and so on. It's totally different, for the lower organism. It sounds good, but you're quite right. It might be a little tricky.
Yes.
But
It's complex.
it's an excellent uh, experiment, most
Yeah.
definitely. But I don't know if you might hear you, and
Yeah.
maybe for the 3 months it might be a little tight to do in terms
Yes.
of
I
the
will.
acquisition of the worms itself,
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas it's a
Sorry.
very good. Oh no, that's
Mm.
fine. I like chickens. I grew up around chickens actually. Well,
Oh,
my
okay. Okay.
parents, my parents had them. Oh, yeah, very nice to have. Keep your yard free
Yeah.
of all insects. I always used to like to see when they come across a cockroach. It was just, they gather around and they peck and
Yeah.
that was the end of Mr. Cockroach. Plus, we never had
Mhm.
issues with grass. They always eat the grass, keep the shrubs down. So I'm mad
Mhm.
at you for having them around. Yeah. So back
Mhm.
on track. So
Yes.
maybe for just for practicality, you might want to look at another experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's a very good one, though. However, I liked it in terms of looking at cephalization as it relates to
Yeah.
memory. That's a very good
Yeah.
experiment to prove, but just might prove a little tricky in terms of the
Okay.
acquisition of the worms themselves.
And the timeline.
Yeah,
So,
and
sir,
the
I would
time.
really like to book you for a one-on-one session if that's possible, so that I could brainstorm some other ideas and pick something. I didn't want to pick something that was too simple where I would be bored,
Mm-hmm.
and yet I didn't want to pick something that was too well. At
Sure.
the time when I picked this topic, I was full-time in school.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So I was
Mm-hmm.
full-time in school, and I had, I guess, a bit more energy
Mm-hmm.
and time.
Yeah.
So right now my time is limited, and I don't think.
So you want something quick, and if something
Yeah.
that could be done in a
Yeah.
and which have so we can meet up
Yeah.
and so
Yes.
let's do that. So just
Yes.
as I mentioned, WhatsApp, hit me up on just remind me on WhatsApp, and
Yes,
I'd
sir.
look at my schedule and we and make a session for you and we could talk some more on it.
Yes,
Okay,
sir. I'll come up with some ideas and I could choose something I'm more feasible.
sounds like a plan, Olivia. Good.
Yes.
All
Okay,
right,
great.
so let's see. Let's look at the time now. Oh, 12:15, so I stepped over by 15 minutes. So any other questions? As I mentioned, just hit me up. Do look for the progression on the e-classroom in terms of on a weekly basis. And then on a weekly basis as well, just touch home base with me and just let me know where you're at. All right, so just for next week, in terms of signposts, one of the things you have to do is just get your a 1 or 2 page outline of your project. Just get that to me. All right, everybody clear?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Avrian, Lillian, Olivia, Rihanna, Salima, has been my distinct pleasure. Good afternoon.
Thank you,
Same here,
sir.
sir.
Okay, take care.
Bye.